Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of the Ross Rundown. I'm your host, Matt Harrelson, alongside with me, as usual, Bran Falk.
How you doing?
Have a good week?
I have so far. How about you?
Excellent, excellent. So, as we are now officially in March, of course, it's time to start getting geared up for March Madness. Before we get to that, though, of course, the ACC and all of the conferences are finishing up their regular season, getting ready for their conference championships. Of course, we're real close to Tobacco Road, so
That's right.
Let's start right there and take a trip down Tobacco Road. Right. So, first off, Duke played Wake Forest this week. Let's start there. Duke ended up winning 71-70, but they shouldn't have.
No, they did everything they could to lose that game. Wake outplayed them for 35 minutes. I mean, it was just truly amazing. Duke was Duke at the end and made a couple big plays, but Wake had a great chance to win that game at the end.
And as you mentioned, it was at home. It was senior night.
Yeah.
Now, look, we still have yet to see Zion come back, but still, this is not it's not like Zion leaves and they're a terrible team.
Yeah, they've got like 4 McDonald's All-Americans on the team. I mean, come on, those guys are still loaded. They should be blowing Wake out.
So for them to only win by one on senior night at Cameron Indoor against the team, I mean, let's face it, Wake Forest is really not that good. I mean, I don't know. I feel like teams have found a weakness in Duke. You think that's true?
I do. You know, one thing about Duke that was different this year, they've always, the years they don't win championships, they've always been live or die by the outside shot, it seems like. And not a real great presence inside. This year they've had the outside shot with some of those guys, but Zion gave them that presence inside that they haven't had in a while.
Yeah.
And now that they don't have that, they're trying to figure out their own way a little bit.
So I guess maybe they're going to start chunking up a lot more threes because of lack of that inside
I think they
presence.
shot 30 against Carolina the night they played, or 25, something like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Once you take out a dynamic force in the paint like Zion, you have to completely change the way you're doing things. However, this was like the third or fourth game that Zion's been out. You think by now they would have restructured the blueprint, so to speak.
Because you thought they had it figured out. It blew Miami out. They beat them by about 30, and it thought, okay, when I saw the Wake game on the schedule the same night as the Tar Heel game, I was like, okay, Tar Heel and Boston College, Duke and Wake, 2 blowouts.
Yeah.
And then Duke, that game was a shocker. As a matter of fact, I caught myself not watching the Carolina game to watch the end of that one because I was just so surprised.
And you're like me. The only thing that could possibly be better than a Tar Heel win is a Duke loss.
That's
Unfortunately, we didn't see that. But we did see a UNC win, as you just mentioned.
Yep.
Also played Boston College earlier this week. Had no trouble with them. Ended up winning 79-60. Right now, Carolina just all cylinders clicking, right?
The only struggle they've had in the last 2 weeks has been the Syracuse game, and they managed to win it.
Yeah.
And pull away. They are really, really playing well at the right time.
And that was the game that I was fortunate enough to go to.
That was fun.
It was, and I would chalk that up to, I know we talked about it last week, but Carolina chunking up too many threes.
That's right.
A lot of them not going in. But, I mean, what else can you say about Kobe White? Kid has just come out of nowhere.
He's just ice water. I mean, he's just amazing. He is not scared of anything. Even when he's 4 for 20, he still wants the ball in his hand with the game on the line.
Yeah.
And I love that about him.
Which is remembrance of another Kobe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And, you know, before the season, everybody was talking about Nasir Little being the guy that perhaps would be a one and done. Yeah. He's kind of an enigma. You know, I'm not sure if we've seen all that he has to offer. He's been up and down, but it seems like Kobe White was like, hold my beer. No pun intended.
Yeah.
And I'll show you what a freshman's supposed to look like.
I agree. I think White's NBA ready, and I'm not sure Little is.
Although I wonder, of course, we've got some time before this decision will be made. Do you think both of them go pro?
Well, if they both are projected to be top 5 picks, I think they'll go. I mean, it's hard to pass that up.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, beforehand, Nasir Little was probably looked at as a top 5, at least top 10. I wonder now, at this point in the season, if Kobe's moved into that position.
I would say you got White and Williamson for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that Little is even a top 10 pick right now.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to. Hopefully, he picks it up here in the home stretch, the tournament, and then the March Madness.
Just enough to win the national championship, but
not
enough to turn pro.
And of course, we'll be losing Luke May for sure.
That's right. Luke May will be gone.
And
Seventh Woods, who's a role player, but a decent role player.
And I believe Kenny Williams too. I think maybe
he is a senior. That's right.
So, but I mean, you know, at this point, Roy's able to kind of rebuild. Also, one quick thing, I saw where Roy got vertigo again.
Yes.
This seems to be kind of an ongoing thing.
And he said he was fine. Said he could have come back out.
Yeah.
Second half, but he didn't want to jinx the assistant coach. I forgot his name. Assistant coach because it was going well. But that, that's got to be a little bit concerning.
Yeah, that's now happened a few times over the last few years.
Yep.
And it doesn't sound like something that's not life threatening, but it's going to alter his coaching life. But you know, we've talked before about at some point there's going to have to be a decision made as to who's going to take over after Roy leaves.
And he's not young. I mean, he's mid-60s.
Yeah.
I mean, Dean Smith told him. The rumor is Dean Smith told him, "Don't make the mistake I did and retire too early because I missed it and regretted it."
Yeah.
So I think he'll coach as long as he can. But he's 65 and starting to have some health problems. You know, you never know how much longer he'll try to hold on.
Yeah, and obviously we hope that he's feeling better. But again, he and Krzyzewski, they can't coach forever. So.
Krzyzewski still looks like he's 45.
He does. I don't know what it is. Anyway, NC State. We haven't really talked much about them. They're currently 8-8 in the ACC. They're in 8th place. They're 20-9 overall.
Yeah.
Probably one of those bubble teams. Would you say?
Yeah. I tell you what. 2 weeks ago, I'd have said they're in.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech lost the other night. Certainly didn't help them.
All right.
They're right on the bubble. You called it. That's a bubble team.
They also lost to Florida State this past Saturday, only by 5. Florida State's ranked, but State perhaps playing themselves out of March
State
Madness.
needs to win one of their last 2 games for sure, if not both, and maybe even win a game in an ACC tournament to make sure they get in.
As far to say they do need to win a game or 2.
Yeah.
Also vying for that top spot is Virginia. Let's not forget about them. They beat Pitt on Saturday. It was close, 73-49.
Right.
Then they beat Syracuse on Monday. It was also close, 79-53, and I joke because neither was close. They'll finish out their season this coming Saturday, tomorrow, against Louisville. I would imagine that's going to be another victory. State will also play tomorrow at Boston College. And, of course, Duke, Carolina, Saturday at 6 p.m.
Right.
So a lot still to be decided as far as who's going to win the ACC because Virginia, Carolina both tied at 15-2. Duke right behind them at 14-3.
Yep.
Now, we talked about it last week as to who has the upper hand at winning the ACC. What do you think this week?
Well, I like Carolina's chances. I heard Zion wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
I like Carolina's chances. Of course, Krzyzewski will get Duke up for Carolina, without a doubt. I mean, you can throw records out the window pretty much when it comes to that game. So that's certainly not a gimme. That'll be a tough game.
Absolutely.
But I think they're in the driver's seat to at least come out of to control their own destiny. They're at home. They've already won at Duke. They win that game. Of course, they end up tied. I think Virginia gets a nod.
Here's the problem. If Virginia beats Louisville Saturday, tomorrow, that makes them 16-2. Yeah. If Carolina wins, that makes them also 16-2, but Virginia has the tiebreaker. So we literally need Virginia to lose to Louisville for us to have a chance.
I just don't see that either.
I don't either. But crazier things have happened. You know?
I thought in the regular season the Tide they called them co-champion, but I think you're right. I think they'll call Virginia the regular season chance.
That's true. I guess they could, but if they had the tiebreaker,
they'll be number 1 seed for sure in ACC tournament if they win.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of that, let's talk about the overall college basketball landscape. So, ESPN, as we sit right now, has Virginia as the 1 seed in the East, Kentucky 1 in the Midwest, the Gonzaga 1 in the West, and Duke 1 in the South, and has Carolina as a 2 seed. You agree with that?
No, I don't. I mean, I know I'm biased, but especially if Carolina wins tomorrow against Duke.
Yeah, that'll change.
I mean, that'll certainly change, but I think it changes. I mean, how do you have Carolina ranked number 3 in the country and not a number 1 seed?
Exactly.
I mean, and now if they lose to Duke, then you can make the argument Duke's right. Duke is there. But
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because the top 10 right now is Gonzaga, Virginia, UNC, Duke, Tennessee. That's 1 through 5. So UNC is ahead of them in the overall rankings, but behind them on the one line.
I don't get that.
I don't get that either. Finishing out the top 10, Kentucky 6th, Michigan 7th, Texas Tech number 8.
The Red Raiders.
Yeah, Michigan State 9 and LSU 10. So a lot of the usual suspects up there. LSU though top 10. That surprised me a little bit. Of course, as I mentioned, Kentucky, LSU, Tennessee. The SEC we never talk about in basketball, and Russell will love this. I mean, is the SEC finally getting up there in basketball?
I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, Rick Barnes was a great hire for Tennessee, and Kentucky's always going to be good as long as Calipari's there. And LSU's a bit of a surprise, but I think the SEC's right there. I mean, ACC's still better with the top 3. I mean, you put their top 3 against the SEC's top 3, I still think they're better. Yeah. But SEC's building quite a reputation now.
It is, absolutely. Rick Barnes has some ACC experience. Coached at Clemson a long time ago.
Hated him when he was at Clemson.
But he knows what top flight basketball looks like. Of course, he also coached at Texas for a little bit.
He did,
if I remember correctly.
He did.
Anyway, moving forward, the ACC tournament begins March 12th through the 16th.
It's going to be at the
Spectrum Center in Charlotte. I'm glad that it's back in the Carolinas.
Me too.
Again.
I'm so the ACC tournament from New York City just did not sound right.
Didn't seem right.
No.
And I understand now with the expansion, we have teams all the way up to New York all the way down to Florida, so they want to move it around. But I wish it was still in Greensboro every year.
I do too.
That's
man.
how I remember it.
That is the spot for the ACC tournament, despite what Jim Boeheim says.
Yeah, well, he's obviously a little biased towards being up in New York.
Right.
But depending on what happens with the games finishing out the season, let's go back to Zion. Still hasn't shown up. So the longer we go now, less likely we're going to see him again.
Krzyzewski says otherwise. He says he would be surprised if he didn't play an ACC tournament. But like we talked about last week, we don't know who's in his ear, and the longer he stays out, the easier it's going to get to not come back.
I mean, I know it was a mild sprain.
That's right. And it's supposed to be day to day, and he hasn't played in 4 or 5 games.
Day to day, and that was what, 2 weeks ago almost.
That's right.
I don't know. Most players that go day to day would have been back by now.
After a game or 2.
Yeah, and I understand that he's the best player in the country. He's your number 1 scoring option. You don't want to further an injury. But my goodness, if you're trying to win, he comes in, doesn't he?
Yeah, you think.
Anyway. Of course, we will continue coverage on the ACC and college basketball, especially once we get into March Madness.
That's right.
Maybe we'll have to get some kind of pool together.
That's right. That'd be fun.
Absolutely. So let's move on to a different sport. Of course, NFL Combine just wrapped up this week. A lot of names moving around. Of course, some guys moving up, some guys moving down. With that starts the NFL Draft rumors, which will be in about 2 months. But I got a couple questions here regarding the NFL. So, number 1, Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback out of Ohio State, should be drafted before Kyler Murray.
I disagree.
Okay.
I like Haskins now, but I guess depends on the team. I mean, if Arizona does, which we're going to talk about that, I'm sure. If Arizona does what everybody's saying, then Kyler Murray's the fit. But Haskins, it depends on who's drafting that quarterback. Haskins is more of a pocket guy.
Yeah.
And so
I was kind of more asking it as just straight raw talent. Which ones should be. Obviously, the teams have to do with it, but
I still think I like Murray better.
All right, yeah,
it's a tough call though.
It is. Good. It is. I'm with you. Haskins to me is the more of the traditional type quarterback. Kyler Murray is the future of the position. Smaller guy, can run. However, with that being said.
Haskins is unbelievable.
He is. We see it all the time, though. Guys come up, these running quarterbacks, and you just can't do that in the NFL.
RG3, prime example.
Yeah.
I thought he was the next thing. He came in, won the division, beat the Cowboys, won a playoff game.
Yeah.
And I was dreading the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And then he just fell off the table due to injury, and it's tough. I mean, linebackers kill you in the NFL.
I think the exceptions to the rule have been Michael Vick and Cam Newton. Vick because he was just an otherworldly type runner. Right. Cam Newton because he's so big. However, it eventually caught up to both of them too, or is catching up to Cam.
Cam Newton's thing he had was, like you said, his size. He had all that speed. But he had the strength of a Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that durability was not a big a problem for him.
Right, but as you mentioned, in college you can get away with it. Get in the NFL and the defensive tackles can run you down.
That's right. I mean, you got defensive tackles running sub 540s.
Yeah, exactly. So up next, DK Metcalf, which I'll be honest with you, I had heard of him but hadn't heard much, and he tore it up.
Wow,
at
4.3 something.
Yeah,
unbelievable. And you too young to remember Eric Metcalf.
I vaguely remember.
The debate's been going on whether they're related or not, and Eric Metcalf says no, we're not related. And now they're researching to see if they may be distant cousins or something.
Ancestry.com.
That's right. So he said, but with that body and that athletic ability, I'll claim him in my family.
Yeah,
I mean he's awesome.
With his combine numbers, he's now kind of catapulted himself into the top 10. Yep. What do you think his ceiling is?
I tell you what, with that kind of speed, and he had pretty decent numbers. He just was a little bit injury prone. Had pretty decent numbers in college.
Yeah.
I think he's going to I would like to see him fall out of the top 10 personally because the Panthers are sitting right there about 15, 16 somewhere.
And they need a receiver.
Yeah, that would be a good addition for them.
Yeah. I wish the Redskins might take
Redskins, depending on what else Redskins do in that draft, if he's still sitting there, that could be a nice addition for them.
Absolutely. Speaking of the Redskins, up next, we've heard some rumors that of course, the Arizona Cardinals sitting on that number 1 pick. Heard a rumor that they may trade Josh Rosen, who seems like a sitting duck quarterback, to the Redskins and then take Kyler Murray number 1. You think that's a good idea?
I'm not sure. Arizona a year ago hired a new coach, a new offensive coordinator, and drafted a new quarterback in the first round.
And then scrapped
a year later, they fired the coach, fired the coordinator, and now they got this quarterback sitting there in limbo. I guess it depends on what Kingsbury wants to do. They're in a good spot.
Yeah.
If Kingsbury wants to do it, I mean, Kyler Murray's the guy, and you could get something for Rosen, and there will be some takers. I can assure you, Rosen is by no means a flop. He's 1 year on a bad team.
Yeah, with no offensive
That's right,
line.
with no protection.
And look, this time of year, draft speculation runs rampant.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you'll hear a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, we're going to hear all kinds of crazy stuff. It just seems like right now, Kyler Murray is the hot commodity.
He is.
To the point where, he could go number one. And if that's the case, right now Washington doesn't really have an option under center with Alex Smith being hurt still. So,
I could see Washington, if they do that, I could definitely see Washington sit there about number 15, and I don't think there's going to be a franchise-changing quarterback at 15. I don't know if there are many franchise-changing quarterbacks in this draft.
Drew Lock, maybe.
Yeah, but if you're sitting there at 15, and you pick up the phone and you ask the Cardinals what would it take
to get Rosen?
Yeah.
And for the Cardinals standpoint, we talked a couple weeks ago. In my opinion, they need to start collecting draft picks. Maybe that's a way for them to keep the number one and say, hey, what can we get back for Rosen? And they say, well, here's the 15th pick.
That's right.
That's 2 picks in the top 15.
That's pretty good.
All right, moving on. Talking about how Kyler Murray is now the hot topic and talking about going number one, whereas 3 months ago we didn't even know if he was going to play football.
Right.
So
that's funny.
Yeah, it is. With that being said, though, up until that point, Nick Bosa out of Ohio State was the consensus number one
overall pick.
What happened? Nobody's talking about it anymore.
I don't know. A couple of the mock drafts still have him up there at 1, 2, or 3, but he hasn't played a lot of football. We spent the last 2 years. I don't think he finished either one of the last 2 years.
He got hurt in his second year and then decided to just shut it down instead of coming back.
So that could have hurt him. It could just be some of these other guys because of who's there and what the needs are. But I still think he'll be a top 5 pick.
I think people are still considering him a game-changing edge rusher.
That's right.
I just think it's funny how
it's funny how I haven't heard his name in 2 weeks.
All the talk going number one. There's no doubt. And then obviously things change when it comes to the draft. And then finally talking about the combine. It's in Indianapolis. It's been in Indy every year since, I don't even know.
87, I think.
Should the Combine, like the All-Star games and such, switch cities each year?
Well, I would like that. I mean, I would love to see the Combine come to Charlotte.
Yeah.
I would love to go do that. That'd be a great event to go to. My son would absolutely love that, and that would sell out.
And, I mean, the NFL, they move around the draft.
That's right. Now they're moving around the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, and send it out basically to the highest bidder.
That's right.
I don't understand why they don't try to do that with the Combine.
That's right. They got that, and then they got the Super Bowl. All these teams bidding on the Super Bowl not getting it. Would love to have a shot, like a consolation prize here.
Exactly.
Give it the Combine.
A city that, like Charlotte, that doesn't quite have the infrastructure set in place to have a Super Bowl could host the Combine.
Yeah, that's right.
And bring in not as many fans, but bring in some people, So, all right. Let's move on from NFL. Of course, as I mentioned last week, we're going to do a draft special here in about a month and a half, so stay tuned for that. Let's head over to baseball. Of course, spring training in full swing.
That's right.
Can't get here, opening day cannot get here soon enough. So we figured starting this week, we're going to go division by division in a little segment I'm calling Rounding the Bases.
Cool, I like that.
Yeah. So we're going to start this week with the NL West. And I've got each team listed here from the West. Going to kind of put a question out there. So regarding the Colorado Rockies, let's start there. Once again, will pitching make the difference for Colorado?
Well, they're going to score.
Exactly.
So pitching is always going to be the it factor for them if they can get just a decent 4 or 5 people rotation to rotation to
absolutely
supplement.
And of course they re-signed Arenado, so that's your franchise cornerstone player.
That's right.
So they're good. I mean, they're always going to be good with offense.
That's right.
Being out there in the Mile High City.
Yeah.
Pitching has obviously been the biggest factor for them. Even on a year, because they score so many runs, if they just have an adequate pitching staff.
If their team ERA is 4,
yes,
they can compete.
Yes. I do like the fact, when the Rockies first became a team back in 95, for 10, 15 years, their idea was, let's sign guys. Remember they signed Mike Hampton?
I do.
For $100 and something million, and he was terrible.
Yeah, he got out there and he couldn't pitch in that air, and they got lit up.
What they figured out was, all right, scrap that. Let's start drafting guys who are ground ball pitchers, because in Colorado, you do not want the ball in the air.
You get the ball up, it's gone.
Exactly. And so because of that, they've drafted guys like John Gray, German Marquez, some of these guys that are coming up in their system that are doing well because they've learned to pitch in Colorado, and I think that's what you have to do. Another thing I think that Colorado's done that was a good idea was their AAA team is in Colorado Springs.
Which is smart. That's
That's
smart.
very smart
Yeah,
because
that's right.
you want them to come up in a high altitude city.
Let's see what they can do before we call them up.
Exactly. So I think that's a good idea.
Yep.
Moving forward, LA Dodgers, of course, fresh off of another World Series, but
right.
not a victory.
That's right.
The Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw, is he past his prime?
Window is closing quickly.
And with that being said, is the Dodgers window closing?
Yes, I do. I feel that it is. I mean, that they have built that roster to win.
Yes.
And they haven't quite gotten over the hump. They're still good.
Yeah.
I mean, and I won't be shocked if we're sitting here in 7 or 8 months talking about them contending for the National League West title. But they even talk about Kershaw might not be ready for opening day. And I think they just got rid of Alex Wood.
Yep.
So that I think the window's closing quickly for them.
I think that last year was their best shot.
They
brought on
needed to win it
Manny
last year.
Machado,
That's right.
and they didn't win it. And I understand they ran into a really good, what was it, Red Sox that beat them?
Yeah.
Same thing the year before that in that
right.
great
Astros.
Houston team.
That was a year I really thought they would win it, but Houston was just unbelievable.
But the fact that the Dodgers got to the World Series back-to-back years, that's not easy to do.
No, it's not. And I tell you what, and almost 3 in a row is almost unheard of.
Exactly, and that's why I'm wondering if we're going to see. Look, LA is one of those teams that has the ability to not only spend money, but they have a good farm system,
Yep.
so they're the best of both worlds.
Yep.
However, at some point, they're going to have to break this thing down, aren't they?
Yeah, because the other thing that takes a toll on a rotation like people like Kershaw is you go deep into the postseason, all those extra innings
Every
start
year,
piling up.
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, that's taking years off the back end of your window.
Yeah,
And
it's kind
so-
of like LeBron.
That's right.
He's been in the playoffs every
I mean,
year of
he's
his
played
career.
year-round for 28 years.
He's played probably 2 full seasons worth of playoff games.
That's right.
That you don't necessarily add into it.
And
So-
playoffs, Olympics,
Yeah.
all the other stuff he's done. I mean, he's all the time playing basketball. So.
Exactly. So, and look, Kershaw is in my opinion, is a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Through and through.
Yep.
But at some point, you just can't do it anymore.
That's right.
So, all right, let's move over to the Padres. Actually, Dodgers here, Padres here.
All right.
Talking about Machado, what will San Diego get from him this year? Playoffs?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I believe he'll put up huge numbers, and I believe if they can't pitch,
Yeah.
they're going to be right there about 3rd place.
Yeah. I think they're still a couple of years
That's
away.
right. I think he's a nice addition. Don't
Absolutely.
get me wrong.
I mean, it's better to have him than not have him.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe this is the foundation that they're building to get to that
Yeah.
point. But I don't think they'll make the playoffs.
I think the
this year.
Dodgers are going this way, coming back a little bit,
Yeah.
and the Padres are going this way, but I think the Dodgers are still ahead of them a little bit.
All right, moving forward. The San Francisco Giants
Yeah.
are an expensive old team.
Yes, they are.
Bruce Bochy's retiring after this
Yeah.
year. Is it time for the Giants
Yes.
to break it down?
Yep, absolutely.
That simple?
They're just. I mean, they're not going. They're not going to do it obviously this year. They want to try to give Bochy the best chance of winning going out because of all he's done for organization, and I get that. But as soon as this year's up, you got to cut bait with some of these guys.
Yeah, they brought on McCutchen last year. Of course, he's with Philly
Yeah.
now. They brought on Evan Longoria.
Yeah.
Madison Bumgarner's getting
Yeah.
up there. Matter of
right.
fact, I've seen him on the trade block before.
Yeah.
I just think maybe it's time for the Giants, like some of these other teams, to break it down and
That's
start
right.
over. So
That's right.
all right, and then finally the Arizona Diamondbacks. Perhaps they're starting over. They traded Paul Goldschmidt during the offseason. What do we expect from the Snakes this year?
Well, I think they'll still be decent, but you don't get rid of your franchise player without at least it being in the back of your mind that you're starting toward the rebuild process and starting over.
Yeah, and
It's-
and talking about people being on the trade block, Zach Greinke was on the block for a while, and they
That's
still owe him a lot of money.
That's
So I'm wondering what the AJ Pollock left.
That's right.
I
forgot about him.
With
Yeah.
all that being said, and we'll revisit this as we get closer. But who do you think wins the West this year?
Well, I still think the Dodgers are the favorite this
Yeah.
year, but I think that's a 1-year window. I think if they don't win the West this year, and I still don't think they make a deep playoff run, but I think they're still the best team in the West.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. The D-backs probably won't be there. The Giants won't be there.
Yeah.
The Padres. I think it's the Rockies and the Dodgers,
Yeah,
one of those
that's
two
right.
moving forward. All right, also moving forward, let's hit our Big Impact of the Week. Of course, brought to you by Richmond Community College, whose motto is Local College, Big Impact. Who you got this week?
Jayana Nicholson
All right.
had just signed her letter of intent to play at Cape Fear. Awesome. Love that kid. Love that kid. Coachable. In every sport she does, great athlete from a great family.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Jayana.
A lot of athleticism
That's
in the
right. That's
Nicholson
right.
family.
Yes, there
she
is.
comes from blue bloods of
Yes, she
sports, if
does.
you will. My big impact, I feel like for the last month, I've done some kind of female big impact. I'm going to keep that going. The New York Mets hired Jessica Mendoza as their baseball operations advisor.
Cool.
Now, she was the first female to do analytical work, like for ESPN's, I think, like Sunday Night Baseball broadcast. And now she's become the first baseball operations advisor for any major league team. Also, want to say as a big impact, this just broke, I believe, yesterday, that Governor Roy Cooper has earmarked about $8 million as part of a grant for Rockingham Speedway. So I think some of the word out there is perhaps building a footbridge across the street from the Speedway to the Dragway. I think that's a good idea.
That's a great idea with that busy highway.
Any kind of money they can send out there will be welcome.
I love it. I love it. I love to see The Rock. I love to see The Rock get mentioned.
Absolutely. All right, finally, let's finish up with love it or hate it.
All right.
The Raiders, not the local Raiders. But the Oakland Raiders have finalized, just win, baby, have finalized a lease deal to remain in Oakland. They're still leaving for Vegas in 2020, but where they're playing this year, not up in the air anymore. Love it or hate it?
I love it. I hate the fact that they're even going to Vegas, period. I think Oakland, you just associate the Raiders with Oakland. Of course, that's not my decision to make, but I love the fact that they're there.
I agree. I'm glad they're able to work this out. However, it's a little bit on Oakland, the city. Now, I know that sometimes NFL or sports teams kind of hold the team hostage when it comes to getting a new stadium. But the A's and the Raiders have been playing in the same stadium forever. Nobody does that anymore.
That's right.
Build them a new stadium.
That's right. And it makes you money. It does.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be doing it if it didn't.
Look, Oakland, the Raiders are leaving for Vegas next year. The Warriors have already moved out of Oakland. They're still the Golden State Warriors, but they're not even going to be in Oakland anymore. They're moving more towards San Francisco. At what point do we see the A's leave too, Oakland's left with no sports.
Wow, that's shocking.
It is. However, on the other flip of that coin, it's difficult to ask your taxpayers to foot the bill for $1 billion sports complex too, and that's what we see.
It's hard to get those through.
It is.
They're not easy.
All right, moving forward, the New York Giants have told Landon Collins that he is free to go. They're not going to franchise tag him. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
Did you get another deal?
Yeah.
All right.
See ya.
Landon Collins is really good.
I like
really good safety.
I'm glad Dallas doesn't have to face him twice a year.
That's true.
So.
I wonder though where he'll end up. He still could end up in.
He's got football left. Without a doubt.
He's only like 4 years in.
Yeah, he's got a lot of football left in him. He's 4 or 5 years. He'll get a big contract somewhere.
Matter of fact, the last 2 seasons I played in a fantasy football league where you were allowed to pick individual defensive players.
Oh, that's cool.
And the first year I auto drafted me Landon Collins, and he led the league in tackles. So I drafted him again.
That's right.
He killed it. So, all right, up next, Snoop Dogg has offered up his Lakers seats for $5. Love it or hate it?
Well, throw in a plane ticket and I'm in.
Yeah.
Did you see his rant?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, my gosh.
He got out there.
Rant was epic. He is not happy with his Lakers now.
I don't think anybody is. No. Right now, they're 30-34. They've lost 7 out of the last 10. They're 10th in the West. Probably going to miss the playoffs.
They look like they're just tanking, man. Yeah. They do.
Is this more on LeBron, or is this on the fact that nobody plays with LeBron?
I think this is on the organization. From the whole deal, from the time he went out with the growing injury, it came back. To me, he's clearly not the same player. I think he's playing hurt.
Okay.
He's still a great offensive player, but he's taking off on defense. Now he's been doing that a little bit anyway. But I think the whole thing with Anthony Davis trade rumors has messed with those young guys' psyche.
Derailed them a little bit. LeGros and James.
Yeah, LeGros.
That's what they're calling him. I feel like if he hadn't gotten hurt, maybe they'd be in the playoff picture. But I still think they may be 6th, 7th, or 8th.
They're still going. If they got there, they're not going deep, even with the team they got.
Although I will say this: when they signed LeBron, I said unless they pick up another superstar this year, which they didn't do, this was a holding year till next year when they can maybe get Anthony Davis.
And I think they knew that. Everybody got hyped because it was LeBron's playoff team. They're not ready.
Although LeBron not getting any younger, and as we talk, with all those extra games he's played, it's got to be taking a toll on his legs. So
maybe if you see you're not making it anyway, you start at least reducing his minutes. You want to play him because the fans want to see him.
Yep.
But reduce his minutes some.
All right, let's go back to baseball. Bryce Harper, of course, signed that deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. He's now actively in the open lobbying for Mike Trout to join him in Philly.
Hate it. Shut up, Bryce. Take your $330 million and play, and shut up.
Trout's going to be a free agent after the 2020
Trout's going
season.
to Atlanta.
That would be great. I don't think we can afford him,
No,
though.
I'm kidding. I don't think that'll happen. But
Look, Bryce got $330 million. What in the world is
Trout
Trout
get
going to
400.
get? At least.
Yeah, Trout's way better than Harper, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And a better all-around player.
Absolutely.
And
Better teammate.
Better person.
Yeah.
And a better hitter.
However, what about this? What about the fact that this is basically you're not allowed to do this, are you?
No, I don't think. I think that would be called tampering.
Tampering, yeah. So that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Like, how is he coming out and saying, "Hey, Mike, come play for us"? That is tampering.
That's right.
So anyway, also going back to Bryce's old team, we're in spring training, of course. Nationals ace Max Scherzer said, "I don't need the DH. I'm going to go out and bat." And he batted 3 times in the spring game.
I love it. I love it, man. I love that. I like that attitude.
I love it too. He batted 243 last year.
Yeah, he's a decent hitter.
Not great, but for pitchers, that's
243.
awesome.
That's like 300. I mean, for a pitcher.
Yeah, and he's a really good batter. As is Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah, who can hit bombs.
Yeah,
he can hit them a long way.
Matter of fact, I've seen, because I watch the Braves and they play the Nats so much, I've seen them use Scherzer as a pinch hitter before. Why not?
A buddy of mine played against Bumgarner in high school and said, in the state playoffs, said Bumgarner hit one about 500 feet on him.
I believe it.
And I said, but they said it was the only hit he got all weekend, and the state said they shut him down the rest of the weekend. And
I believe all of that. All right, let's go back to the combine. We hear this every year. There's always some weird, crazy questions that are asked.
God.
I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Right.
So Texas
Awesome.
cornerback Chris Boyd at the combine was asked, "Do you have both of your testicles?"
What an awful question.
Love it or hate it.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Why would you ask somebody that?
That's exactly what he said. He was like, "Of course I do. Why are you asking me?"
Why do you need to even know that?
You know, a lot of these times they ask these questions just to see what their reaction's going to be, see what their demeanor
that's
is.
Just out there a little
But
bit.
what does that have to do with football?
I mean, this is not Match.com.
No. Also, during the combine, Kentucky cornerback Lonnie Johnson Jr. was asked to engage in a staring contest during his interview with the Seahawks.
Love it. I really don't, but that's awesome.
I love it too. By the way, he won.
He did. He couldn't even remember the guy's name.
I just love to see them just like.
That's right. I bet he would lose against my wife.
Oh, is she good?
Oh yeah, she can stare you down.
Somehow I have this uncanny ability to stare at things without blinking for as long as I want to.
I like the Budweiser commercial from the Super Bowl about 10 years ago where he's just standing there.
Yes.
The official standing there staring through the wall.
I don't know how I do that, but somehow that's my hidden talent. Moving forward, remember how Clemson went to the White House and they were fed, fast food?
Yeah.
Well, North Dakota State, who was the FCS champions, also went to the White House, and Trump served up Big Macs, French fries, and Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
I love it. They had a Chick-fil-A, man. How much more classy can you get than Chick-fil-A?
Yes. Now look, there are people out there that will complain about this.
They have. Twitter blew
Those
all
are the people
over.
that complain about whatever he does. Yeah. And I'm not the biggest Trump fan, but these are college kids.
Give me some Chick-fil-A and take me to the White House.
When I read Big Macs and fries, I was like, okay. And then I saw Chick-fil-A sandwiches. I was like, I'm there.
I'm in.
I am there. Let's go back to baseball. Of course, we just talked about Manny Machado signing that 10-year, $300 million contract with the Padres. In return, the Padres have seen a $3 million ticket sale boost in the last 2 weeks because of Machado.
Is that season ticket?
I don't know if it's season tickets. I would imagine it is.
That's truly awesome. No, okay, that is truly an amazing number. And so that right there, you're seeing a return on your money. That's why these players, these big names, get the big contracts because they know they're going to sell tickets. They sell tickets.
So they're about $297 million away from making
That's
it
right,
all up.
from breaking even.
But I mean, you're right. $3 million extra.
That's right.
Merchandise.
That's right. The jerseys.
Yeah.
That's right. Just all the stuff that they'll make. They will make it back in 5 years.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, me personally, I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to go play a professional sport in San Diego, especially outside.
Beautiful city.
Yeah, you'd think they'd have no problem filling up the stadium every week.
That's right.
Was it Petco Park or whatever it is?
Just a beautiful town.
Whatever puts butts in the seats.
That's right.
Have at it. Moving forward, let's go back to football. So the Philadelphia Eagles decided not to franchise Nick Foles. So let's start there. Love it or hate it?
Love it. Love it for Foles.
All right.
Foles deserves a shot somewhere, and they're clearly not going to give it to him in Philadelphia.
All right.
I think it's cool that they did the right thing.
Let's piggyback off of that because right after that, the Jaguars came out and said they're going to sign Nick Foles to a multi-year contract next week to be their starter. Love that.
Love it. He's better than Bortles.
Absolutely. I feel like for the Eagles, if Wentz is going to be their man, then make it so.
That's right.
Let Foles go and do his thing because he's been the better of the two quarterbacks, in my opinion.
At least in the postseason for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like if Foles goes to Jacksonville and plays the way he played with Philly, they're going to be a team to reckon with.
That's right.
So
they already got a pretty good defense.
They do. Speaking of that, let's go to the Cowboys. Talking about franchises, they also franchised defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence for the second year in a row. Love it or hate it?
Hate it.
Really?
Get the deal done.
Okay.
Get the long-term deal done and don't jerk him. He will not play nice again this year.
You
When
think?
they franchised him last year, he said, I'm a team player. I want to be a Cowboy. Okay. He sat there and he said, okay, you're going to make me prove it again after he just had a great year, and he proved it again. Pay him.
Yeah. I believe that if they're not careful, they're going to venture into Kirk Cousins territory.
That's right.
Like the Redskins did.
That's
and I
right.
mean, look, if you keep franchising this guy, it's going to cost them in the end more than it would
That's
if
right.
they'd just signed him to a deal.
Just sign him to the deal now. 3 years from now, it'll look cheap, especially if he keeps producing what he's producing.
I mean, he's one of the best
That's
ends
right.
in the
That's
league,
right.
right?
I mean, they don't, and there are two other starting defensive ends from last year are both gone. Randy Gregory suspended indefinitely, and David
That's
Irvin
right.
was free agent suspended indefinitely.
A couple more football ones here. Talking about franchise tags. Jadeveon Clowney was tagged by the Texans. Love that or hate it?
I hate it. I love
So
it.
you believe these guys should be able to just sign deals?
Once you has Clowney been franchised once?
I don't think so.
Okay, well if it's the first time, then I don't hate it so bad.
Okay.
I thought he'd already been through the tag once.
If it was, it didn't say that in the
Okay,
article.
all right. So I then that's a little different. I love it because you got to keep Clowney and Watts together because Watts' window is closing.
It is. It is. And I think that Houston, with Deshaun Watson and Hopkins, and now if they can keep Clowney happy and keep Watts happy, they should be a team also in the AFC South with Jacksonville.
Yeah.
They can
That's
be
right.
reckoned with.
That's a good D line right there. We got Watson,
is.
Clowney on other. I get it. I thought he'd been franchised before.
I don't believe so.
Change my answer to love
But
it.
it makes me wonder this time next year will they try to pull the same stunt?
It didn't work well for the Steelers.
No.
Bell just decided to take the year off.
Yeah.
So,
And now that loophole has been figured out,
Yeah.
perhaps we'll see other teams do that.
That's right.
Also talking about the NFL offseason, the Cleveland Browns have released linebacker and leading tackler Jamie Collins Sr. Love it or hate it?
I hate it. For this fact, I read an article that said he didn't make a lot of big plays. He still led the team in tackles.
Yeah.
And they finally look like they're turning a corner.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, don't mess with the continuity you had. I mean, what were they 7-9 last year or something like that?
I think so.
Or 7-8-1.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so I mean that's like winning a Super Bowl compared to what the Browns have been lately. So I wouldn't have messed with that. I would have.
I agree 100%.
kept him.
When they traded for him from New England, he was, that to me was one of the first bricks laid for the Browns
right.
to become better. It's only going to cost them $2.5 million in salary cap space this season. They'll save $9.25 million.
Yeah, I can get it. It's probably financial. I'm sure
It is.
I'm sure it's financial.
And then next year they'll save almost $14 million.
Because I think they had already paid out most of the guaranteed money of the contract.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a possibility they re-sign him on a team-friendly deal after they let him test the market a little bit.
However, though, Cleveland has a lot of young guys still under their rookie contracts.
That's right. So
I feel like they should be able to afford
I mean, they're paying Baker Mayfield
nothing,
a rookie contract deal. And they
on
did
the
a good job
defensive
of
side,
dumping salaries.
Myles Garrett's under his rookie
right.
contract. Jabril Pepper's under his rookie contract.
right.
I'm just wondering. When I first read this, I was like, typical Browns.
That's right. We'll start succeeding. Let's screw it up.
Yeah. All right, two more here, I think. Yes. Major League Baseball is overhauling their all-star voting system to create what they're going to call an election day for fans to pick starters. Love it or hate it.
My first reaction was hate it.
Okay.
I'm going more towards the love, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because all-star games are hard to make relevant in any sport.
Correct.
And so this will be a nice little twist for the fans. I mean, it's worth trying. I mean, if it doesn't work, you can always go back.
Exactly. And one of the things they tried was making the World Series count.
Yeah.
I didn't like that.
Yeah, then you're punishing
exactly
good teams.
Yeah.
For what crappy teams.
Exactly. I'm okay with this. Perhaps I wonder if it's doing too much, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, we need to do something, so let's just do something. Yeah. They're also discussing increasing the prize money for the Home Run Derby participants to try to get bigger names to get in it.
I love that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's not like you see how that packs the stadium as well as much as an All-Star game. So,
yes.
So
Home Run Derby, like the All-Star or like the dunk contest.
Yeah.
That's what people come to see.
That's right, and that's what puts the butts in the seats.
Yep.
Pay to get your big guys there.
Absolutely. And then finally, for a love it or hate it, of course, we talked last week, Jason Witten leaving the Monday Night Football booth, coming out of retirement to play for Dallas, which means somebody needs to replace him.
Yep.
Word on the street is Booger McFarland is the name. Love it or hate it?
Love it, I guess.
Yeah. Booger McFarland started off with ESPN's SEC coverage.
I remember him.
This past year, they had what they called the Booger Mobile. and it's him on the
What a
sideline
great name.
doing
It's the Revenge of the Nerds.
yeah, doing sideline coverage, but he's got like this little cart that he sits on, and they said, why not just move him up?
So he's already got the little cult following going on.
Exactly.
And from what I hear, he certainly can't do any worse than what Witten did.
Exactly, and I think that's what a lot of people are saying. Again, want to throw it out there. Brandon and myself are available. We'll
That's
split.
right.
We'll split the salary.
I'll go for half of whatever you paid Witten.
Yes, me too. So
Start tomorrow.
absolutely, I'll start today.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for another edition of the Ross Rundown. Of course, we appreciate everybody for tuning in this and every week across all of the Richmond Observer platforms, which, by the way, are free. So you got no excuse to come check us out. So once again, for Brand Fall, I'm Matt Harrelson. We'll see you right back here for another edition of the Rundown.